You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Scorching heat and empty baptism pools inside Trump's deserted American State Fair based on an article by Matt Laslo. Trump's empty fair wasn't a celebration. It was a sponsor deck, a spectacle with no audience. The source of the story is simple. Trump's Great American State Fair drew sparse crowds, sweltered visitors, and a lot of empty seating. A revival tent set half empty. A Trump-era trade panel barely attracted a few dozen people, and even the marquee gimmicks had the feel of a stunt without believers. That matters because attendance is not a vibe. It is a measurement of legitimacy. The event was supposed to sell a political story about national renewal. Instead, it exposed how thin that story is when the crowd won't show up. Who actually ran this? The people with real institutional power here were not the visitors wandering through the heat. It was the Trump administration, the agencies staging exhibits, and the corporate sponsors underwriting the whole operation. The article makes clear that the administration refused to fully disclose the financial backers, while logos from Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, SpaceX, GE Aerospace, Oracle, Uber, Chevron, and others were everywhere. That is the actual structure of power on display. Public institutions dressed up as patriotic entertainment, with private capital plastered over the walls. The fair was not civic life. It was state-sanctioned branding. Patriotism as packaging. The event's political fraud is in the framing. The fair sold itself as a celebration of America, but the content was military recruitment, corporate promotion, and bureaucratic self-advertising. The Pentagon and other agencies turned their space into recruiting centers. The HS handed out FEMA crayons and hazard maps to children. Trade officials got stage time. Contractors got visibility. This is not a neutral community event with a few sponsors. It is the state functioning as a marketing platform for the military-industrial complex and adjacent corporate interests. Eisenhower warned about this arrangement for a reason. Trump's version just strips away the restraint and calls it celebration. Heat, water, contempt. The most revealing details are not the logos. They are the conditions. Visitors were turned away from closed exhibits. Water was scarce or lukewarm. Fans were waving themselves in 100-degree heat. The rodeo was cancelled. People were not being invited into a shared public experience. They were being managed through discomfort. That is how low-grade, authoritarian culture works in practice. The appearance of abundance, the reality of indifference. A state spectacle that cannot even provide water while advertising national greatness is not accidentally incoherent. It is contempt with signage. The civic lie. The story's weak point is its own nostalgia for a supposed cleaner celebration of America. But the problem is not that this fair was more politicized than it should be. That phrasing understates the point. It was political through and through, because the state was being used to launder corporate power, normalize militarism, and wrap both in patriotic aesthetics. The few dissenting details matter. A visitor wore an "All of Us Are Immigrants" shirt. Another came looking for something closer to civic memory than partisan theater. Those moments show the gap Trumpism cannot close. Americans can be asked to admire the set, but they are not required to confuse the set with the country. What this really shows, the larger pattern, is not simply bad event planning. It is the hollowing of public life into managed spectacle, where government agencies, contractors, and political operators merge into one promotional ecosystem. The crowd is optional. The branding is mandatory. That is the governing logic of Trump-era politics and not public service. Not democratic meaning, but institutional power repackaged as entertainment for donors, contractors, and loyalists. The empty chairs are the most honest thing in the tent. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Ross Story for today's article. With the automated voice of John, thanks for listening.